From Sigma Woman, this is the Business for Aligned Women podcast. I'm your host, Clara McKay, your aligned business coach and advocate for all things showing up for your vision. This is a no BS space for brave-hearted women who are actually craving change. I'm dedicated to bringing women's visions into reality, equipping women with all they need to build an abundant future, and shutting down all of the ways that you keep yourself small. Here, we're all about a women-centered approach, non-negotiable value alignment, and making bank without compromising your well-being. Each week, you're already one step closer to your most aligned and abundant future. Welcome to today's episode. We're going to be diving into our first book club book. We were reading The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weist, and we're going to be talking about the main experiences that people got from this book, how it helped them, and this might get you to pick up the book and give it a go as well. I have recently released a free 20-minute class all around cultivating gentle consistency. This class is going to help you understand where you might be sabotaging your output in your business. It's also going to give you a pretty big mindset adjustment in regards to how you're approaching your business, how you're coming into it. And it's just going to give you tons of little tips and hints so that you can start tapping into productivity and consistency in a way that works for you. Check that out in the show notes. It's 20 minutes. You can listen to it as audio. It is designed to make sense and fit into your life. It is ready for you to watch straight away. I would also love to invite you to book in a call with me if you have been considering working with me in 2024, because I have the absolute final spaces for one-to-one coaching this year. If you don't book in soon, I won't be opening up any more availability until February and April next year. So make sure that you jump on and book a call with me if it's something you've been meaning to do, or if you've been on the fence, or if you just want to have a conversation about it. Make sure you jump on. I also wanted to let you know that if you're a Spotify listener, you can now leave comments on the episodes. If you find anything really interesting or anything that you want to point out, or if you want to reflect something that you've experienced or the way that maybe the episode has helped you, please feel free to leave a comment if you are listening on Spotify. Our first book club book in the Aligned Women Book Club, which is designed to be a really low effort, low touch book club where we read one book over 3 months and then come together. You send in all of your feedback, and then I put together this episode from everything that we got from the book. And the books are a mix of self-growth, business, and potentially some fiction in the future as well. This book, The Mountain Is You, the subtitle for this book is Transforming Self-Sabotage into Self-Mastery. And I first read this book 2 years ago. I read it on audio when I was on holiday, which is a very Capricorn thing to do. And to be honest, I loved all of the information, but the narrator delivered it in such a way that it kind of just felt like I was getting nagged at and like told off for a few hours. So I DNF'd the audio, but I then bought the physical book for us to read because I knew that there would be so many nuggets in here that people really needed. I personally think that this book has a lot of really easy to digest, bite size, quick win tips, hacks, perspective shifts, and it has a lot for a small book. And a lot of these, I think they could be applied to anyone, but they're also really going to be helpful for female business owners. And I chose it because I just felt a lot of people who are in my space who self-identify as sensitive, it's not serving them to be continuing to approach everything in a really soft and flexible way. And I will go as far as to say that people who are like that and who are in their really deep-seated victim mentality, they're some of the most frustrated and angry people I've come across. And if they're that frustrated and angry, we need to do something about it. We can't keep living like that. That is why I chose it. And I wanted to pull up a couple of concepts specifically that stood out to me. And the first one is on page 98 to 99. And she's just breaking down over quite a few pages the difference between intuitive nudges or intuitive thoughts and intrusive thoughts. And essentially, what she's saying is what I know to be true and what I learned through kind of all of my yogic philosophy studies, that true intuition and intuitive thoughts are calm, grounded, and unchanging, whereas intrusive thoughts or anxiety related thoughts are fast, abrupt, a little bit like they feel a bit irrational, a bit out of nowhere. And I think that there's a lot of groups of thought out there that have tricked us into thinking that intrusive or anxious thoughts are actually like intuitive hits or intuitive pings. And I know that in business, a piece of guidance I would love to give you is if you've decided that you're going to do one thing and that's been a long-term decision, and randomly one day you get a big hit saying do something else, please trust me when I say that's an intrusive thought. That's an anxious thought. It's not your intuition. It's not a ping. You need to look at what has been the steady and what is the unusual and the new. And the unusual and the new is probably intrusive rather than intuitive. She also talks on page 24 about needing to reach a breaking point where you realize that maybe you need to become fed up and maybe the problems that you're experiencing aren't necessarily being done to you, but something that you have an active responsibility in. And I wanted to bring this up because obviously not everyone who does coaching are going to be fed up with themselves. But if there's any part of you that is really sick of your own shit, I want you to know that if you can invest in coaching when you're feeling that way, you are going to get so much more out of coaching than other people. Because if you have reached the point of really being fed up with yourself and your own BS, you're so open and ready for change and making action that's going to be transformative. If you haven't yet reached that point, you are probably still likely to talk yourself out of taking action and being avoided. The last thing that I wanted to share that I think was really great was on page 168. And she's talking about how fear and worrying and overthinking aren't the things that are actually going to save you or protect you, but it's preparing and taking action and learning and understanding and processing that is. We often lean on overthinking and worry and psychic thinking and future projecting as a way to protect ourselves, but they're actually forms of self-harm, let alone self-sabotage. Those are three things that I really wanted to highlight for you. And let's start hearing from some of the readers. Let's hear from the beautiful Aaliyah.
Hi Clara, Aaliyah here. Just wanted to say thank you for creating this book club. I loved the first book, The Mountain Is You. As an ex-self-help book junkie, it's been a couple of years since I've read something self-mastery and I just loved it. It was gentle, straight to the point, and very powerful. Can't wait for the next one.
Now let's hear from gorgeous Kathleen. She said that participating in the book club and reading The Mountain Is You has been a profoundly transformative experience for me, both personally and in business. One of the most powerful lessons for me was about motivation. Rather than waiting for a feeling of inspiration, I realized that I sometimes needed to use logic, create it, and take action. The shift in mindset has been pivotal in driving my progress and has resulted in more motivation. So realizing that you might not always feel like you can take action, but you absolutely can as long as you're willing to try. And the more that you try, the more you will get used to it. She said that this realization led to one of her most productive periods in business. And each day she's committed to doing something that supports her growth and then something that supports herself in her personal life, even when I don't feel like it. That is just, it's so important and it's so obvious. But I also think that when people are really stuck in their head and they're overthinking, it's simple things like that that they let go of. For instance, I do a lot of work self-regulating, exercise every day to break the stress cycle, yoga, nidra, meditation, journaling, like all of these things that I'm doing. Obviously, I love them doing them for myself, but I'm doing them not only because I know statistically how much better I feel when I do them, but so that I can show up for my business and my clients in a way that is grounded and non-reactive and able to have the capacity to hold. For everyone, what those little things are will be different, but understanding that intrinsic motivation is something that we really need to learn how to access. Emma said that she really appreciated the insights around worrying, fear, and other people's opinions. She said that the book describes those things as a form of self-sabotage and a way of avoiding the true tasks at hand. It reminded her to stay grounded, present, and concerned with what is in my locus of control. Now, number one, so amazing to read that part about, okay, so maybe my fear and my worry is a way to avoid doing work. I see that almost every day in my business. And sometimes people truly are struggling. I'll be honest, it's pretty rare that someone is truly struggling. Most of the time, they're in their head because action is scary, and action will mean kind of proving themselves because they'll get a result that they either do or don't like. Rather than taking that action, I'm just going to think about things too much. Marina really loved some parts that were about being attached to the old versions of ourselves and what is familiar, or the traumatic events that we've had in our lives and the limiting beliefs that we've developed over time. She's saying that that often holds us back from fully embodying the life that we wish to live and being fully aligned with who we are in our essence. By the end of the book, she basically felt bored in capital letters at herself for the times she had made herself so small due to circumstances that no longer exist and are in the past. What a waste of life. Oh, yeah, huge exhale. And yeah, when I see this playing out with my clients, there's boredom, there's frustration, but there's also like all of those things at once. I find it so sad. Like, there's not a better way for me to describe it than just incredibly, incredibly sad when when we make the conscious choice to keep rolling with the patterns that are not serving us rather than doing something different and scary. Ruby loved a sentence on page 24 that talks about how humans are guided by comfort and familiarity, and sometimes they reject things that they need just because it's actually different, even though it will benefit them. And the last little point that I wanted to share from the group is this point around how the book probably didn't give enough nuance in terms of, I guess, dealing with more traumatic things or experiences. And this came from someone who said they've been in therapy for a long time and that's helped them to develop their skills and their own ways of kind of handling things that are a bit more nuanced than what the book says. And I have two things to say about this. And the first thing is yes, like, yes, I agree. It is like a short, sharp, quick book with a lot of little hints and tips. And I think we have to not apply our expectations or our needs onto things. If we're looking for like really deep nuance, then we probably need to find a psychology textbook, not a self-help book. And secondly, the other part that I wanted to talk about is there's a group in my community of people who have told me that, and I'm not saying the person who sent this in, it just clicked off a little light bulb for me to bring it up, that have been in therapy for many, many years, like over 10 years, right? And they're literally some of the most reactive and dysregulated people I've ever worked with. Some people that I've actually had to stop working with and say, I'm sorry, I cannot work with someone who's this dysregulated. You have to go away and work on governing your moods and emotions before stepping into building a business and definitely stepping into getting coaching with someone. And it's like, I think we do need to be like, is this working? Like, how has this served us? And if we've been doing that for a really long time and it hasn't worked, then we probably need to look at alternatives rather than just continuing to pay that therapist and not seeing any change. But also, there's a subgroup of that subgroup that I truly believe this staying in the victim mindset, feeding this whole experience and needing everything to always be soft and flexible for them and needing so many things to be off limits for them because they're so easily triggered by life, like literally by other people existing. I do think that they need a bit of a wake up call. And this book definitely has a lot of those. The last thing that I did want to mention about this book is in the last little part, she talks a lot about having principles and knowing your values. And I find that to be so incredibly important in becoming someone who is regulated, who is calm, who is non-reactive, who stays in their lane, minds their own business, doesn't get upset about what people are saying about them. Because when you have principles and you have self-alignment, you know what you should be caring about and what you shouldn't be caring about. And it really reduces so much excessive thinking and worry and indecision. And if that's you and you relate to that, I always have my self-alignment workshop available for you, which is a self-led workshop that will take you from denying your needs into really beautifully boundaries and also prioritizing things that you actually care about. And yes, it's a self-help workshop, but it's my start here for any business owner who wants to work with me, because going into a business without knowing those things is it's going to be chaotic. Lucky last, and it fits really perfectly with a lot of the kind of comments that I received from this book. Our next book is called Reasons Not to Worry. And it's by Bridget Delaney. She's an Australian author, and it's breaking down in a really simple, easy to digest manner, Stoic philosophy. It's a really basic, daily, normal life application of an ancient philosophy that can be very lofty and at times a little bit confusing. And I know that most people listening to this podcast would love some reasons to let go of worry. And I also know that a lot of the reasons people are attracted to me and look up to me, for lack of a better saying, is this calmness, groundedness, and being unbothered. And there, of course, I can be bothered sometimes. And if you attack my character, you will bother me. But as a general rule, in comparison to most business owners, I'm incredibly unbothered and incredibly able to regulate my responses when things happen. And a lot of that can be attributed to Stoic philosophy. This is the tool that got me into this shape. And if you admire this shape, you probably should look at this tool. That's why I'm suggesting that we read this for the next 3 months. It's a small book. It's really simple, themed chapters, and it's a little bit more lighthearted and a little bit funnier at times as well. It's delivered in a way that is a bit more lighthearted. I really hope that you enjoy it. Join the book club if you haven't already to get the emails and be invited to have these conversations with me. And I can't wait to be in your ears next week. If you can't tell, getting to share this time with you is something that I find truly sacred. I know that you're busy, but if you've taken anything away from our time spent together today, could you extend the love and share this episode with a friend, your community, or on your socials? Tag me so that I can see it and I can share it too. Or when you have a spare moment, leave the podcast a review. These things cost you nothing and will mean so much to me. Let's get this resource into the hands of more women visionaries and help us collectively move towards our most aligned way of being and doing business together.